You shall not covet your neighbor's house. What does this mean?
We should fear the Lord God, so that we do not scheme to get our neighbor's inheritance or house, or live in a way which only appears right, but help and be of service to him in keeping.
You shall not covet your neighbor's wife or his manservant or maidservant, his ox or donkey or anything that belongs to your neighbor. What does this mean?
We should fear the Lord God, so that we do not entice or force away our neighbor's life, words or animals, or turn them against him, but urge them to stay and do their duty.
So simple. You won't covet, basically. It's just not going to happen. Translate, you shall not covet. And I remember looking at the Hebrew word for covet, covet, and it has to do with this strong desire, lustful desire. And there's the imagery in this Hebrew word of glowing embers, just burning, or yeast fermenting is what this word is tied in with, and this just burning desire for something, wanting something, and we can call it greed, lust, all this uncontrollable urge for something that isn't yours, and of course none of us have that problem, right? And for those of us that have been parents, or soon-to-be parents, you got kids, and I used to work in a grocery store, and they come in, and there's a lot of thought put into the schematics, product placement in the store. The cheapest items will be on the floor or out of arm's reach of the top of the shelf. The most expensive items are going to be right around eye level for adults, and the stuff they're marketing to children will be at children's eye level. There's a reason behind all that, and then why the kids are always, hey, I want this cereal, I want this, I want that. And then, once you run the gauntlet of all the aisles, you get to the checkout counter, and what do they have there at eye level? Candy bars, chewing gum, all kinds of goodies. And when our kids are really young, boy, it overpowers them. They want something so bad, they try to sneak it in the cart, and you put it back on the shelf, and then they fall down. And they start crying, and we call it a temper tantrum, right? And you've got an urge to give them a lesson with the Board of Education at that point, but there's too many witnesses around, so you got to bear with it till you get out to the car. Right, Daniel? No, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. And I'm sure it never happened to you. And so you think, man, a child throwing a temper tantrum over a pack of gum or something. And then here you have in the first reading I had, there was Ahab. He's king of Israel. He has a temper tantrum. He wants to buy this, offers him whatever price he wants. He says, no, this has been passed down in the family. It's not about money. It's not about getting another vineyard. He says, I want to keep it in the family. And he goes home, and what does he do? He lies up, he throws himself on the bed and turns his face away, just like a kid. He's having a temper tantrum. And his wife Jezebel, not known for being one of the nicest queens, I'll take care of it. And she goes and gets some idiots to make false witnesses, get them stoned to death so her husband can get it. And when we stop and think about coveting in our day and age, and for us as adults, of course we're too sophisticated to be coveting of all things. Maybe our kids do that. We're just trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? Well, that's another way of saying coveting. And maybe it's not a good idea to try to keep up with the Joneses, because they're probably headed for a cliff, a financial cliff, and if you try to tailgate them, guess what's going to happen? We're seeing that as a nation, this huge amount of debt, not only for our nation, but right down to the average I think some statistics in the $30,000 range for every man, woman, and child in the United States in debt. And it's scary. Why? Because we're trying to live beyond our means. We want more than we can afford. And the whole advertising industry. I read this book, and it was for a philosophy class in college, and it was called The Want Makers, and how the advertising industry works. First somebody comes up with a widget. Well, for thousands of years we survived without iPhones or whatever, the latest thing coffee maker is or whatever. But suddenly, the advertising industry's got to create this desire. And you've got, people that are, their day is all different because of a Keurig coffee maker. They're able to start the day with a fresh cup of coffee, or stay in touch with everybody with a phone, or all these different things. And pretty soon everybody in fact, I even saw one of those phone commercials. It's not a luxury anymore, it's a necessity to have a cell phone. And some lady broke down on the road in the rain and in the dark, and it's not a luxury, it's a necessity. Well, we all bought into that, and it's amazing how that advertising industry works, and creating this lust, this want, this desire, this coveting for more and more things. And we think that somehow these things will satisfy that emptiness that can only be filled with Jesus. And even as Christians, we fall into that trap, that buying into the world's marketing and wanting more and more things, and more than we can afford at times, or most of the time. And there's St. Paul talks about in the other reading about contentment, being content with what we have. It's the opposite of this like coal burning inside of us, wanting more and more. It's being content. It's this calm, this peace that comes from knowing we're first at peace with God, but that He provides all that we need for this body and life. Being thankful for what we have. Stopping and taking an inventory of all the temporal blessings we've been given. A full pantry, full freezer, having a car puts you in the top 3% of the world's population for wealth. You imagine that? How many of us have more than one car? I do. And stopping thinking about that, how good we do have it, and these temporal blessings we've experienced, and how every time we sit down to eat, as we say, "Thank you, Lord, for this food," we're reminded that He provides for our daily bread, and then some. So much more than we ask, and that contentment that comes as a result of that. And I've struggled. In fact, I think if you grow up without things, you want more things. You tend to want more things, and that's how I've struggled with that. I know each of you have struggled with that. Wanting more and more, and yet being content with what we have. Godliness with contentment is great gain, St. Paul says, and that being thankful for what we have. Recognize that it all comes from God. God gives us all that we need, and then some. And as we do that, sharing it with others. I also read another book years ago. It's called The Millionaire Next Door. And this guy did a study on millionaires, people worth $1 million or more. And he was doing this. People want to get into the psyche, especially advertisers. What makes them tick. And he said he was really surprised by what he found. He said the average person in the United States that he studied that was worth $1 million or more, it was over 90% of them, it was something like 97% bought used cars. It's about at least a year old, so it takes most of the depreciation off. They almost all lived in middle-class neighborhoods. They could afford much nicer, but they lived below their means. They lived in a middle-class neighborhood. They didn't shop at the fancy outlet stores. They like to go to the discount stores and Walmart to do their shopping. Most of them had never tasted caviar, didn't want to taste it. They preferred crackers and regular old cheddar cheese, for a snack. And something else, he said, these people, and many of them were small business owners that accumulated wealth, and he said they started out without much, and especially in their college days and stuff, they accumulated this wealth, but he said even back when they didn't, before they were millionaires, they were going to have their giving, on average, these people gave 6% of their income to, whether it's church or charity, to whatever other causes to help others. And where the average American that's worth less than $1 million gives 2% or less to charities and church. And it was really surprising to him that, a lot of these stereotypes, you think of them as being skinflints, you think of them living large and caviar and all this, and yet they were generous people. And, and for us, God's given us everything. As we realize that we're welfare cases, we've received everything from Him, when we realize that, it makes us a little bit more generous with what we have, be able to help others in need, be able to contribute to church and other causes, and it's out of generosity. When we realize how blessed we are, how much we've been given, we want to give in return. And this contentment that comes from knowing that we have everything we need. And my wife and I have realized that over the years, there's less and less that we want. There's more and more that we're thankful for, and just, but it's an ongoing process. God isn't finished with us yet, and I haven't arrived yet. There's still things that I want at times. I still covet, I have to confess, and yet God's working on me. And I think He's working on, I know He's working on you too. And as we realize everything He's given to us, that contentment, that thankfulness that results, and be able to share with others, to help others rather than wanting to take more and more. May God continue to transform us in the image of His Son. Amen.